Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Speak English podcast. We're so glad you're here with us today. I'm David.
And I'm Sarah. This podcast is here to help you practice English in a fun and effective way. Whether you're a beginner or an advanced learner, we've got something for everyone.
Exactly! In today's episode, we're going to talk about one of the most important skills in learning English: listening. And trust us, if you follow this simple technique, you'll see incredible improvement in no time.
That's right. A lot of learners struggle with their listening skills because they use methods that just aren't effective. But today, we're going to show you the easiest and most effective way to improve your English listening skills.
So, stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. And by the way, if you're enjoying the podcast so far, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode.
Let's dive right in and get started.
So, let's dive into why so many people fail to improve their listening skills. The truth is, improving your listening isn't something that happens overnight. It's a long-term process. And the mistake most people make is they don't realize this. They want results right away, which is totally understandable. But listening improvement takes time. And that's where the problem starts. When you start, it can be really frustrating to not hear any significant change after just a few weeks. You think you're doing everything right, but it feels like you're stuck. Sound familiar?
Oh, absolutely. I've been there. It's easy to feel disheartened when progress isn't immediately visible. But that's because listening improvement requires patience. And, like you said, people often expect results too quickly. They want to see major improvement in a short time. And when that doesn't happen, they feel discouraged and start doubting whether it's even possible to get better.
Exactly. And this leads to the next problem. Most people turn to methods that are not only inefficient, but often quite inconvenient. It's like trying to use a tool that isn't the right fit for the job. For example, some people try to improve their listening by watching the same movie twice, first with subtitles and then without. That might sound like a good idea at first, but it quickly becomes tedious, and, to be honest, it's not really a sustainable way to practice.
Right. Imagine sitting through a 2-hour movie and then doing it all over again without subtitles. By the time you get to the third or fourth movie, it can feel like you're just going through the motions, not really learning anything. And if you're already feeling bored after a few movies, it's not going to be something you'll stick with for long.
And what about those who try transcribing everything they hear, writing down every single word? It sounds like it could help, but let's be honest, it's a lot of work. And for most people, it's just too much to handle, especially if you have a busy schedule. You start with good intentions, but after a few days, you realize you don't have the time or energy to keep up with it.
Exactly. And when you're overwhelmed with tasks like transcribing or rewatching movies, it becomes harder to stay motivated. And eventually, you give up, right? But the thing is, that's not because you're not capable. It's just because the methods you've been trying are not the most effective for long-term improvement.
Exactly, Sarah. The key takeaway here is that it's not about how much time you spend or how hard you try. It's about finding methods that you can easily integrate into your daily routine, methods that won't make you burn out or feel like you're doing extra work. Because if it's too hard, you won't stick with it. And if you don't stick with it, you won't see any improvement.
That's exactly why we're here today. We're going to share a technique that's simple, convenient, and most importantly, it works. It's not about doing more work. It's about doing it the right way. And that's what we're about to show you.
All right, let's get into the good stuff now. The technique I'm about to share is simple, effective, and easy to integrate into your everyday life. In fact, it's so simple that you might even wonder why no one talks about it more often. But that's the beauty of it. It's easy, and it works.
Exactly. So let's break it down. The first step is to download a bunch of listening materials to your phone or MP3 player. Now, the key here is to focus on materials that feature real, natural conversations. This is important because we want to expose ourselves to the type of English that we'll actually hear in real-life situations. Movies and TV shows are great, but they don't always reflect the way people speak in everyday conversations.
That's right, Sarah. You want to find content where people are speaking naturally, without scripts. This could include podcasts, interviews, or even audiobooks. The idea is to listen to English that's as close to how people actually communicate as possible. That way, you get used to hearing real-world vocabulary, slang, and different accents.
Exactly. And this is where the second step comes in. Don't listen during your free time. Now, this might sound a little strange at first, but here's why. We don't want to carve out extra time in our day just for listening practice. We want to make it so easy that it doesn't feel like extra work. So instead of forcing yourself to dedicate time, listen while you're already doing something else, like commuting, waiting in line, or even exercising.
Yes, and this is the game changer. By listening during these in-between moments, you're not adding any extra time to your day. You're just multitasking. And the key here is that you're still getting the exposure to real, natural English conversations without having to rearrange your whole schedule.
And here's where the magic happens. You're not doing extra work, but you're still getting tons of practice. If you listen for just 30 minutes a day, in 1 year, you will have listened to over 10,000 minutes of real English. That's a huge amount of listening. And the best part is that it doesn't take away from your daily routine.
Exactly. You're listening to authentic, everyday English, and you're doing it in a way that feels effortless. Over time, your brain will start to absorb the language naturally. You'll get better at understanding different accents, picking up on nuances, and learning new phrases, all without really thinking about it.
And remember, the consistency here is key. You don't have to spend hours a day. Just 30 minutes a day will add up. And because you're doing it during your daily activities, it's sustainable. You're creating a habit that you can keep up with for the long run, which is essential for seeing progress.
Right. And if you keep doing this over time, you'll notice your listening skills improve without even having to put in extra effort. It'll become second nature, and you'll be able to understand native speakers more easily. It's all about exposure and consistency.
And one of the best things about this method is that it doesn't require you to sit down and study for hours. It's completely integrated into your life. Whether you're cooking dinner, walking the dog, or commuting to work, you're making use of those moments to improve your English listening skills. It's super convenient, and it really works.
Now, let's compare our technique with some of the traditional methods people usually use to improve their listening skills. One of the most common methods is watching movies. I'm sure many of you have tried this. Watching a movie with subtitles, then watching it again without subtitles to see how much you can understand. It seems like a good idea, right?
I've tried it myself, David. And while it can be helpful, there are a lot of downsides to it. First of all, as we mentioned earlier, not every scene in a movie is a conversation. You might get a 100-minute movie, but not all of that is useful for listening practice. You'll have long action scenes, explosions, or car chases where there's no dialogue at all. So even if you're watching a movie for 100 minutes, only about half of that is actual conversation.
That's right. So, let's say you watch 4 movies a week, which is about 208 movies a year. That would mean you're spending 20,800 minutes of your free time just to watch movies. And in that time, you'll only have listened to about 10,400 minutes of English conversation. That's already significantly less than what you could get from our technique.
Exactly. And if you're spending that much time on something that's not even all useful, it starts to feel like a waste of time. Plus, think about how much extra time you're spending on those movies. It's not just the 100 minutes of watching, but all that extra time you could be doing other things, like practicing speaking or reading in English.
And here's the thing. If you start using our method today, you can listen to real English conversations for 30 minutes every day. And in just 1 year, you'll have listened to over 10,000 minutes of authentic English. The best part is, you don't need to sacrifice your free time to do this. You can be commuting, walking the dog, or exercising while you're improving your listening.
Right. And if you keep doing this every day, it adds up. The key difference is that our method uses time that would otherwise be wasted. You don't have to stop what you're doing and sit down for hours to watch movies or transcribe every word you hear. Instead, you can keep living your life and at the same time, improve your listening skills.
It's about convenience and efficiency. Imagine that in 1 year, you'll have listened to almost 11,000 minutes of English, and all of that will be from real, natural conversations. No need for subtitles, no fake dialogues, just real English being spoken by real people.
And the beauty of this is that you're not spending hours in front of a screen trying to catch every single word. You're getting constant exposure to natural English, which means your brain will start picking up the language in a much more natural way. You'll start understanding common phrases, slang, and different accents without even thinking about it.
Exactly. And when you compare this to watching movies or transcribing every single word, you can see that our technique is not only more effective, but also much easier to sustain. Over time, you'll notice that listening becomes second nature, and you won't even realize how much you've improved.
Absolutely. So, instead of spending hours watching movies, consider switching to our method. Just 30 minutes a day of listening to real conversations during your daily activities, and you'll see a massive improvement in your listening skills. It's a smarter, more efficient way to practice, and it works.
So, to wrap things up, let's quickly go over what we've discussed today. We've talked about why most people fail to improve their listening skills, because they often use methods that are inconvenient or just too difficult to stick with. And we've shared a much simpler, more effective way to improve your listening: downloading listening materials and using your in-between moments to listen while you're doing other things.
Exactly, David. We also compared our method to traditional methods like watching movies or transcribing, and as we discussed, our method is not only more efficient, but also much easier to integrate into your daily life. By listening to real, natural English conversations for just 30 minutes a day, you can accumulate over 10,000 minutes of listening practice in just 1 year.
And remember, the key here is consistency. It's not about doing something for hours every day. It's about making listening practice a part of your routine, something you can do while you're already doing other things. This way, it doesn't feel like extra work, and it's easy to stick with for the long term.
Absolutely. And the best part is that this technique is not only effective, but it's also something you can start right now. No need for any fancy equipment or specific resources. All you need is a phone or an MP3 player and some good listening materials. And once you start, you'll begin to see the results over time.
That's right. So, don't wait for the perfect time to start. The best time to start improving your listening skills is today. Download some materials, listen during your daily activities, and stay consistent. It's that simple.
And if you found today's episode helpful, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. We've got plenty more tips, tricks, and techniques coming your way to help you improve your English skills.
Exactly. By subscribing, you'll be part of the Speak English podcast community, and you'll get to continue learning with us as we bring you even more practical and effective tips to help you master English. And if you're already using this technique, let us know how it's going. We'd love to hear about your progress and any challenges you might be facing.
Yes, your feedback is important to us, and we'd love to help you overcome any obstacles along the way. So, don't forget to comment, subscribe, and keep practicing. You've got this.
All right, that's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Speak English podcast, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep listening, keep learning, and remember, consistency is key.